So for today's lesson, we're going to be moving on to our next scene. Now remember, if you haven't finished your previous scenes, please do finish those first, and then you can move on to the next scene. So our first start, our warm-up task today, we're going to be looking at consonants and vowels, and then we're going to be applying these to our writing. So sort the letters of the alphabet into groups of consonants and vowels. So on a piece of paper, I want you to first of all think what a consonant is and what a vowel is. If you know these already, great, you can separate them into those. So I draw, what I would do is something that looks like this. So divide your page to start with into consonants and vowels and have a go at writing which ones go in. Now, vowels are the easiest to do first, so I would do those first if you know them, and then put the consonants in after. If you don't worry, we're going to go through them now. So we're going to have a look. So if you don't know what a consonant and a vowel is, do not worry, because we will have a look at that now. So vowels, if we start with vowels, vowels are the letters A, E, I, O, and U. Okay, so vowels, we can't have a word unless we have a vowel in it. Or most of these. So obviously sometimes there are some exception words, but most of the time you cannot have a vowel, a word without a vowel in. So these are what builds a word. Now when you're playing things like Hangman, these are the best to put first, because these will show you where these key letters will go in a word. So if you want to have a go at, after we've talked about this, have a go at playing a game of Hangman and put your vowels in first, you will see how it makes it a little bit easier to guess the word. So vowels are A, E, I, O, U. Say A, E, I, O, U. Now say A, E, I, O, U are vowels. Now, if we remember A, E, I, O, U are vowels, that means that every other letter in the alphabet is a consonant. So can you say all the other letters are consonants? So can you repeat after me? A, E, I, O, U are vowels, all the other letters are consonants. Fantastic. Now we are going to need to remember these, so if you need to do a little bit more practice on remembering that A, E, I, O, U are vowels, you might want to write it down a few times to really kind of embed that in your head. Once you feel like you're quite secure with that, then we can have a look at the next part of your learning, so then you can play the video. So here are some examples of words that start with consonants and words that start with a vowel, because remember, vowels are A, E, I, O, U. So we can see we've got A, E, I, O, and U. And we know that all these letters here are not vowels, they are consonants, because they do not start with A, E, I, O, and U. So we can see, now what I'd like you to do is use these as an example. I want you to now have a look around the room, and I want you to look at objects. So for example, for me, I can see that I'm sat in front of a window. I know window is a consonant because it begins with a W and is not A, E, I, U. So what I'd like you to do is just spend the next couple of minutes having a look around the room. You could even write some sentences to say window starts with a consonant. I could see I've got a pen, so I could write pen starts with a consonant. So I want you to have a look and see around your room what the objects are and whether they start with a vowel or a consonant. So spend a couple of minutes doing that and then play the video once you've had a go. So we're going to now look at whether we put a or an, because this is something where quite a lot of us make this mistake. So usually we put a before a word that starts with a consonant. So for example, if I have a look at the words here, I know house doesn't start with a vowel because it is not A, E, I, O, or U. It starts with a H, which is a consonant. So usually I would put an A before it. So we would say a house. You wouldn't say an house because it doesn't make sense. So if I put that into a sentence, there is a house at the end of the garden. You wouldn't put there is an house at the end of the garden because it doesn't make sense. Because if we use the word a, it means that the next letter on the next word, the starting letter on the next word must be a consonant and not a vowel. However, when we are looking at words that start with a vowel, so for example, orange, it starts with a vowel O, we would then use the word an rather than a. So I will put the letter an in there. So we would say an orange, we wouldn't say a orange. Because if we put it into a sentence, if I said I'm going to eat a orange, it doesn't really make sense. But if I say I'm going to eat an orange, I've used the word an. So remembering that we use the word an when our first letter of our next word starts with a vowel. So I'd like you now to have a go at doing the other four. So I'd like you to write down underneath, I'd like you to write whether it's a or an, so write whether it's going to be a pencil or an pencil. And then I'd like you to write a sentence underneath. So if I was to set this out in my book, mine would look like this. So I would write the word an orange, and I would put an and I would underline it. Then underneath I will write a sentence that includes an orange. So I am going to eat an orange, and I've underlined an to make sure that I have done it correctly, because remember orange starts with a vowel O, so I need to write an before it. Now if you were to change the sentence and put I am going to eat a delicious orange, you would put a delicious orange, because the word following a starts with the letter D. So delicious starts with a consonant, so you could just use a before it. So you can see, so you might want to also write that a different sentence where a could be used if there's an adjective before your object. So have a go at doing that for pencil, rabbit, envelope and apple, and then we'll see if you've got that correct. So let's see, have we got it correct? So obviously I did the first one for us. So we had an, because our starting letter of our next word is a vowel, and we had a because our starting letter was a consonant. So let's have a look. So let's have a look at my letter of my next word. So it's a P. So I know a P is a consonant, so I would use a pencil. E is obviously a vowel, so I would have an because it's an envelope, not a envelope. Rabbit starts with a R, so this would be a consonant, so I could just put an A. And apple starts with a vowel, so I would put an. So well done if you've got those right, and well done if you wrote some super sentences as well with that, so you can give that a tick. Now I'd like you to have a read of these sentences and have a think of which one is correct. So tomorrow I am going to something party. Is it going to a party or an party? Now the way we can check this is have a look at the word after, where we need to put a or an, and we can have a look. It starts with a P. I know this is a consonant, so I know that I'm going to write a. Now what you could also do is you could read the sentence twice and put a in the first time or an in the second time. So tomorrow I am going to a party. That sounds fantastic. Tomorrow I am going to an party. Doesn't quite work, so we can hear it straight away. So I'd now like you to have a go at writing the next sentences about Humpty Dumpty, about the rain, about the dog, and about the horse. Sorry, that house, not the horse, the house, and it's the igloo. So I'd like you to see if you can write a or an correctly. Remembering, look at my example for the first one. If you need to have a look to see and circle it or underline what your starting letter is of the word following a or an, to see if it's a vowel or a consonant, please have a go at doing that now. And then once you've had a go at doing that, press play and we'll see if you've got it correct. Okay, so let's have a look. So tomorrow I'm going to a party. Humpty Dumpty was an egg. Remember, because egg starts with a vowel, so it has to be an. I always have an umbrella in my bag in case it rains. So remember, umbrella starts with a vowel, so it will be an. The dog was on a lead because lead starts with a consonant. You can make a house out of snow, which is called an igloo. So a house, because house is a consonant, and igloo is a vowel, so we would need to put an before. So well done if you have had a go at doing that. You could, as a bit of a challenge, if you finish your work, you could also have a go at writing some of your own sentences as well. Now, sometimes the rule doesn't always work, which is where we have to read our sentence to make sure it makes sense. So it was a unique painting, or it was an unique painting. Now this is where sometimes the rule doesn't always work, because we know unique is starts with a U. So you would think that the word before it would be an, because it is, U is a vowel. However, it doesn't always, because the letter U makes it like a Y type of sound. We would need to use a instead of an, because if you read the sentence, it was a unique painting, or it was an unique painting, you can see that a unique painting makes more sense and sounds correct. So we would do that. So this is why we have to keep checking our sentences to make sure whether we have used a or an correctly. Similarly with this one, it was an honest mistake, or it was an honest mistake. So honest sounds, even though it starts with a consonant, which you would think it would be a, not an, it isn't quite right, because it doesn't sound right, because the letter H makes almost an O sound, because when you say the word honest, you don't hear the honest, you just hear it as an O sound. So because of that, and because it sounds like an O, it would be an honest mistake rather than a honest mistake. So we can see that it was an honest mistake doesn't sound correct, but it was an honest mistake does. So please make sure you read your sentences. So listen to the sound at the start of the underlined word. Does it make a vowel or a consonant sound? And I'd like you to now have a quick recap and have a read of this. You can either read it verbally, or you can write it down to see whether a or an would go in the gap. Once you've had a go at doing that, let's have a look to see if you've got it correct. Okay, so this is following the rule. So even though our starts with a consonant, it's got an O sound to it. So for this one, I'm going to write it in. So it would be an hour, because you are hearing an O sound for hour to get to the zoo. I have to wear a uniform. So uniform makes a U sound, so it would be a uniform, not an uniform. We flew to a universe, because it makes the same U sound, far away. Now if you put an there, we flew to an universe far, it doesn't make sense, whereas we flew to a universe far, far away does. I would like to ride on a unicorn, again making the U sound. The king wanted an heir, because if you didn't know what that word there means, if it's an heir, it means it's a child. So for example, a king and queen will need a child to take over them as king and queen, so it's their heir, somebody that's going to take over once they're not around anymore. So the king wanted an heir to the throne. Obviously heir makes an A sound, so we would need an. And it was an honour, because again we're hearing the O sound, not the H, so it was an honour to meet the Queen. Fantastic if you've got all of those correct. If you haven't, just have a look again, have a read your sentences and see, can you tell now which ones have the consonant and the vowel sound, to see whether to use a or an correctly. Finally, I'd like you to write some sentences using a or an. Now I've given you some pictures here that you might want to use in a sentence. Alternatively, you can come up with your own sentences to really challenge yourself. So for example, I might pick the whistle, and I might say my sentence could be Miss Firth blew a whistle to tell the children it was the end of playtime. So thinking about how you can use a or an in the sentence using a picture, and you could even add some more adjectives and adverbs in there as well. So I'd write about 5 sentences using a or an correctly, and then move on to the next part of the lesson. Now we are going to be looking at scene 3 today. We had a go at doing our scenes and discussing what each scene was going to entail. So yours looked something like this. So we've had a go at doing our first 2 scenes to say what was going to happen, and we're now going to have a look at the 3rd scene. So please have a look to see what your 3rd scene is going to be about, and then we can move on. So I'd first like you to think about what your 3rd scene is going to be. So for me, mine is going to be that Cinderella is at the ball. But I'd like you to think, look back, what's your 3rd scene going to be? Where is your 3rd scene going to be held? And what will happen in your 3rd scene all the way up to the 4th scene? So what exactly in that area is going to happen? The first thing we're going to do then is you're going to need to write scene 3 and underline it. Again, just like with scene 1 and 2, you can also put in brackets where this scene will be held. So you might write at the ball, but you don't have to, but you could if you want to. Then we're going to start again with the narrator, because the narrator will help to set the scene. So it's always good to have the narrator at the start of the scene. So let's have a look what my narrator is going to say. As the golden doors swung open, all the guests stopped and what they were doing and looked towards the large golden staircase. Slowly walking down the stairs, Cinderella gradually descended the stairs. So we can see there that I've introduced, we know that the doors are open, Cinderella has entered and everyone has stopped to look. So we can now see what exactly is going to happen next, and then we can have a conversation. Now you can see that I have put in lots of adjectives. I've got golden staircase, the large golden doors. I've also got lots of adverbs there as well. So I've said she was slowly walking, gradually descending. So also see if you can get some of those into your writing as well. So now you can have a go at writing what your narrator will say to introduce your story, and then following it on by something that the guests or whoever you are, your characters are going to say next. So for example, my guests are now going to say, whispering to a friend, so obviously there are my stage directions, "Wow, who is that?" And the other guest might say, "I don't know, but she's really beautiful." Now at this point the narrator might then step in and say something else to give a little bit more information. So for example, the narrator might say, as Cinderella reached the bottom step, the prince couldn't take his eyes off her. He moved gracefully over the shining dance floor to where Cinderella was standing. So now my prince might then want to say, would you like to dance? Or Cinderella might say something first. So you can see how it really starts to develop into a conversation, but actually seen as well and knowing what's happening and how characters are feeling. So I'd like you to have a go now at writing your next scene all the way up to the point where it will move on to the next event, the next scene. So for example, for mine, I will write it all the way up to the point where Cinderella leaves the ball and loses her glass slipper behind her. Okay, so once you finish your third scene, you can now start to have a look at your fourth scene. So you can start this today as well. So thinking about what's going to be in your fourth scene, what's going to happen, who's going to be in it, thinking about the characters and what they're going to be saying as well. So thinking back at what you've just wrote for your third scene, now can you have a reread of that, think about how you're going to develop it on, and think about what your fourth scene is going to be about. So for mine, I'm going to show you my example of what my fourth scene might be. Now again, we start with scene 4 and we can start with the narrator talking. Now please ensure that all your scenes follow on from each other, that there's not a gap where the story doesn't make sense. So my narrator will say, slowly walking up to the final house at the end of the long cobbled street, the prince was losing hope, but knew he had to keep searching until he found the beautiful, mysterious woman he had danced with at the ball. Knocking on the large wooden door, the door slowly opened and the ugly stepmother stood there proudly. So obviously I have started from when he is at the final house, which is Cinderella's house. However, I do need to make sure that if I haven't spoken about him actually searching the rest of the village, that needs to be either in this scene at the start, or it also needs to be in the previous scene, so that it follows on from Cinderella losing her shoe and running away to the prince saying how he wants to search the whole kingdom to find this mysterious woman. So please make sure that it does follow on. So obviously it will make sense when you do read it fully back. Now again, here I've got lots of adjectives and adverbs. Long, cobbled are my adjectives, mysterious. I've then got some adverbs, slowly, proudly. So please make sure you can include some of those as well. And now I'd like you to have a go at introducing your next part. So what's your narrator going to do to introduce your next scene? Once you've had a go at doing that, you can then start to finish off using again, a new line for each speaker to show where your characters will speak and what they will say. So for example, the stepmother says, "Come on in, my daughters would love to try the glass slipper on." And there, obviously in the stage directions, it's showing that she's waving a hand to welcome them into the house. Stepsister 1, "I want to try it first." and in stage directions pushing past her sister. So you can see that, really picture the fact that she wants to get there first, so she's pushing past her sister. Whereas the second stepsister then says, no, let me go first. It will definitely fit me. So we can see as the story is starting to develop. So I'd now like you to have a go at doing your next part up to the ending of your scene, if you are going to do another scene, or to the ending of your play, which might, in my case, finish where the prince finds his beautiful Cinderella and they live happily ever after. So the narrator may finish off by saying, the prince and Cinderella were so overjoyed and they moved back to the castle and lived happily ever after. So you could add a lot more detail in that, but that's obviously an example of something you could finish your story with. Now once you have finished and you have completely gone through and your whole story, your whole scene follows on from each other and it all makes sense, then obviously it will be a fantastic ending. So please do put it on Seesaw. I would love to see your work, so please do put it on so I can give you some feedback and really enjoy your play scripts as well.